So yeah, throughout the summer in partnership with Southwark Council, so we put 10 grand in, Southwark Council put 9.5 in. We delivered a puppet and storytelling festival, trying to get kids off their laptops and help parents out throughout the summer period. That's gone really well. So we'll be doing it again next year. We're midway through opening a affordable co-working space in one of Archco's railway arches. Where I believe, unless anyone tells me otherwise, will be the cheapest co-working space in London by a country mile. So we'll be very proud when that opens. It will tier up over time. So our expectation is that people start and grow with us for 2 to 3 years, at which point they'll spread their wings and the next person come in at the most affordable price point they can. I think anything where creativity is involved and startup costs are high is quite restrictive. So therefore, I'm hoping that we'll open a pathway for many young entrepreneurs to find their route through. That was equally my background. I used to run a chain of 25 different co-working spaces across London, so a few thousand startups came through our buildings. Yeah, the other bits that I would like to touch on, I think you mentioned things in relation to how businesses in the area are coping in terms of current economic climate. I met with Marina Ahmed from Mayor's Office Assembly member earlier today, and it's kind of the same kind of words of knowledge that I'll pass on. So the Mayor's Office share data with us on footfall and spend. That spend data comes from MasterCard's and Visa's spend, so it's kind of like fairly precise, but it's an index rather than actual numbers in each shop. Footfall on the high street is actually not down, but spend is dramatically down. Well, 8 to 10% down. That's noticeable for most businesses, especially as the business rates have increased. The majority of businesses have kind of been brought into business rates. It's a bit like how tax bands work for individuals, where over time, as inflation increases and the amount that you earn increases, you end up in a higher tax bracket. That's similar as happened with business rates. So a lot of businesses that previously, small businesses who weren't applicable to pay business rates, have now been pulled into that. And the arch that we've taken on is a good example. So we're now having to pay business rates on the arch, whereas when we took on the arch, we weren't applicable for business rates. So lots of small businesses will be paying business rates for the first time this year. I'm grateful for the move today in terms of central government limiting business rates for pubs. It won't happen for some time, but it's useful. But yeah, they're national issues in terms of business rates needs to be revisited completely. It's a tax that you have as soon as you move into a building. It's not in any way progressive. It's kind of like really restrictive. So yeah, like I know that as a local council authority, there's not a lot you can do about business rates, but it's a significant burden on small businesses of any size. And when you hear of, I'm going to be quite controversial now, but when you hear of people like, I'm forgetting his name now, Chief Exec of JP Morgan Bank, having a deal in place where they'll be able to avoid paying business rates, I'm kind of like, how did we get there? Who does this? But yeah, they're national issues. So yeah, the other stuff that we've got coming forward for this year to try and help the businesses, we've got a significant issue with retail crime. But I've also got the issue of businesses have given up reporting crime. So when I look at our retail crime stats for our area, so I had a meeting with the police today, and luckily Sainsbury's are reporting, so they do now appear in the numbers. But most of our businesses don't report because they've given up. Now, as a business owner, previously I did this. So in my co-working spaces, when we had break-ins, in the early days, I used to report everything. And then each time you'd report something, and this might not be known, but you then have to spend a few hours talking to the police, giving details. And at the end of the day, that system doesn't work. So I once apprehended someone. They went through the court process, and then 2 weeks later, I caught them on our CCTV again. So, that's not even retail crime, which I think every time I go into Tesco or Sainsbury's locally, part of me is kind of like, has everyone given up? As a society, have we given up? Because the amount of people that I see just trying to walk out with stuff is crazy. And yet, if you look at the stats, we only had 6 retail thefts a month and before that we had 2 in the entire South Bermondsey. Those numbers obviously aren't true. So we've put in place a simpler method for businesses to report. I hope that the businesses will give us some trust and start to fill this out and give us some data which we can then go to the police, to the borough commander and say, listen, here's the actual numbers. We might not be able to sustain this reporting, but this is the reality. Will there be additional resource allocated to the area? Early conversation with the police today. Will equally host the police team whenever they want to be in the Bermondsey area. We'll host them in our co-working space. I think it's the right thing for us to do. It kind of like it's a win-win, I hope. Obviously, there's no budget within the police to cover that, but I think as a quid pro quo, it's quite a useful one. We're doing a lot of work with the schools now, which is great for us. I like certain elements, obviously a more business owner priority, but sometimes lots of the businesses appreciate what we do with local schools. So we're funding a number of kids from deprived backgrounds to go on outward bounds at the primary schools where they wouldn't previously been able to afford. So it's kind of like, I think as the private sector, we where we can, and those that are doing well, we want to help. But there are a lot of businesses struggling, and they'll go, well, why are you putting money into that when we already pay it? So it's a bit of a balancing act for us to have with the local business owners. And there's a massive split in our area between where the railway line is. So luckily that, in terms of the high street, is struggling, with the exception of a few destination businesses who bring people to the area, like Brotherhood Games. I think what the council did there was so positive in terms of giving us a reasonable rent-free period at the beginning to help a local resident set up a business, and they've grown, and I think now they employ nearly 25 staff, and I'm kind of like, that's such a great outcome. And we have seen a reduction in the number of betting shops on the high street. I find that hugely positive. Some of them are my levy payers, so if they do watch this, I'll probably have a rather annoyed email from Ladbrokes or William Hill or any other known betting shop. But when they're in a deprived neighbourhood, I think they're just sucking money out of the local community. And so, yeah, that's been good to see. We do still have more than I'd like to see. So as Admiral, one of the digital casinos, let's call them, where people go in and they tap a button in the hope that they might win. I think everyone knows that the odds are stacked against them. They've moved across the streets. They've gone from a council-owned property into private landlords. So there's nothing we can really do to restrict that. I know some local councillors objected to their licensing application, so like, it's. But yeah, within the framework that we exist, that can happen. That unit hasn't come up for let yet. I'd like to see that in a positive use change. We've still got a lot of shops, as I explained at last year's meeting, that don't open, permanently have shutters down. I know the property team were going to look into that and see what they could do. But yeah, again, when I was at this meeting last year, and lots of the councillors told me that Russell, for previous years upon years, had mentioned the same stuff. It's kind of like, I'm happy to share, but at a point it's kind of like, and that's why this is useful, to continue the dialogue. But yeah, so lots of businesses not opening to the general public when shutters are down. I don't know, back in my early career, I was at Central London Partnership, and we produced a document called Public Space, Public Life, mainly pushed by Pat Brown, who's great. She was my ex-chief exec. I think she still does a lot locally. And then we were kind of advising all local businesses and all businesses across London not to have shutters that block all natural light. And it's kind of like, if you make an area seem like it's not nice, it's kind of self-fulfilling. And yet, through some of the funding that was delivered as part of the Good Growth Fund, and a lot of stuff, good stuff happened locally that was good, But then you find out that some of that funding made that happen. And I'm kind of like, I wish I'd been at the bid at that time to try and advise them that actually this was slightly downward slope. So yeah, there's lots of change still to happen. But going back to the divide between the north and south, we've got cut-through arches that have now been signed off. So the permeability from the residents within Greystar's development passing through to the blue, the quicker that opens up. I think that's at the end of next year, potentially. We should hopefully start to see some more spend in the blue. The longer the time before that happens, residents who've already moved into those developments will become creatures of comfort, and it will take us a long time to shift them to a new shopping habit. I think we all have our regular patterns. We know where to go to buy our essentials and where our favourite coffee shops are. And once we've found them, we're kind of like not going to move. So the quicker we can make that bit happen, the better. And then there's obviously Archco's planning application, which will come in quite soon for that whole run of railway arches. But all of which I'm so positive to see happen and at pace. The quicker it happens, because we've gone such a long time with Greystar's redevelopment starting, and obviously a big chunk of what used to be the old biscuit factory being demolished. We've lost a lot of local spend in terms of people who come and work in the area, spend in the area. So yeah, I think that's a bit significant element of why it's slightly underperforming, but national context as well. Like it is what it is. I think we're living through quite a difficult cost of living moment for most people. Yeah. Is that useful?
Yes, thank you. That's really useful. I wondered if you might be able to talk about, in terms of like creating a pathway to work for people locally. So I looked at the discussion, I think it was about 3 years ago when someone from Bermondsey Blue came in before, and there was talk about big local works and a Morley College and like kind of the path to work locally.
Yeah, Ludz runs big local works. So he is equally a director of the bid. So Ludz does a lot with the property developers in terms of helping create those pathways to work. But the bid have also procured big local works to do a piece of work for us that essentially will be taking school kids from different schools across the area into local businesses so that they have an understanding of like work life and what different organisations do. Because some of that is missing. I was chatting with someone who's going to present on something completely different later, and it's kind of like, I think the businesses need a lot of hand-holding with schools in terms of the schools will know which pupils are best likely to perform in those environments. As business owners, even when we're recruiting in a normal scenario, we've got a CV, we understand what people have done in the past, what they're likely to be able to achieve. When people are new out of school, we don't have sight of that. We have exam grades, which are much of a muchness, and therefore that hand-holding piece, so that it's almost schools' recommendations on who might be able to perform well in different business environments is so useful. But yeah, because like I said, recruitment takes an awful lot of time. We hate the recruitment process. It takes us away from our day-to-day. It's like admin, and it's kind of like you can figure it out, but we all make mistakes in the recruitment process. So that yeah.
I've got a few more questions, but does anyone else like to ask one? Councillor Raleigh?
Oh, right, okay. Thank you for that. Yes, I mean, I've just got a couple of questions, if I may. I mean, the first one is you spoke about, the schools. I mean, there are quite a lot, aren't there? There's Charter, there's Harris Academy, there's Kohler, St Saviour's, and also quite near is Bacon, Arc and Southbank University. So, I mean, you have given a description about, the young people looking at the businesses and everything, but I just wondered how, you can work with them more creatively to actually shape, the local area. The other question I had is like a really big bugbear of mine. Because I've got now teenagers, and when my daughter first started school, she's coming back with like these boxes of chicken, you know, which, you know, it's just like so many fast food shops are around. So I just wondered if there are any there, and you know how we could, you know, stop so many fast. You mentioned Ladbrokes and everything, but you know, fast food shops are, you know, equally things that we need to try and map out away from schools. And then my third question, if I may, is what the council can do more positively, you know, to work with you, because we've got a lot of council shops there, haven't we, to keep them, you know, to stop them being boarded up. Because I remember.
Sorry, Councillor, can you turn the mic there? Sorry,
Sorry. Okay. Kiera. Okay. So basically, 3 questions on the, you know, basically how the children and young people in all those neighbouring schools, you know, actually don't just benefit from the area, but actually help shape the area. About the fast food shops, so they're going to be mapped out as well as the bookies. I suppose the last question was that a lot of the councillors from the Blue were constantly talking about the shops that the council have in that area and what we can do more positively to stop them being boarded up. So sorry, 3 questions. Thanks.
That's all right. I've invited the local schools to sit on the bid board for a number of reasons. Partly when we're doing different events, it's most of the events that we now do are focused on families. So to have the schools directly involved in what we do, where it happens, is so integral to making it work. And a lot of what I've learned is actually from Frog, who is a contractor for us, and he delivers a lot of our events. So he does like the Lantern Parade, and he did the Puppet Festival. It's kind of like if you involve everyone through every stage. So let's say with the Lantern Parade, we pay Frog to go out to the schools and they make lanterns, and then they go out to different community groups and they make lanterns. And then all of those people and their families turn up for the Lantern Parade. Like, it's straightforward, and it really is. So the more involved we are with the schools, the more that they can influence, and actually the better outcomes we get. We have more people turn up to stuff because they're fully engaged with the process. Because that kid has come home with a little puppet or a little lantern, it's kind of like, we can go and do this. So from that point of view, I think, first step, inviting the head teachers onto the board is a step towards that. Don't need them all to attend every one, but if I can get at least one of them to each board meeting, and then it helps us with our direction in terms of what we do as an organisation.
And you can also get young people from the school council as well. It's a really good way of getting them.
Yeah, and actually maybe sitting as observers and just to understand to a certain degree, because a lot of it for me is about giving the businesses an opportunity to vent or from that point of view. So hence Rachel Bentley sits on the board, Neil Coyle sits on the board. I asked Marina Ahmed today and she said that she'll be able to attend a few a year. So as a mix, that will give us one element, and if we have the schools there as well, and it's just kind of like it's this collective framework of both education, business, council, I think we can make change. Whereas if we're quite isolated as a bid on our own. And this isn't, I've worked so closely with the other bids in Southwark, and they're so supportive of the Blue, which makes my job way easier. But there's a massive difference between the bids in Southwark. So just to give context for those who don't know this, essentially our annual budget is about 100 to 120k per annum, with the exception of external funding pots that we can pull in. Most bids have circa 1.5 million plus. So we're me part-time plus a couple of contractors, whereas some of their teams are 9, 10. So what we're capable of, I have to manage my expectation and the board's expectation of me. And what I say to them is we need to do less, but way better. Because they say, can you just do this? Can you just do this? Can you just do this? And it's kind of like mission creep, and it becomes quite challenging. Sorry, I've forgotten the other questions now.
I mean, the fast foods.
Fast foods. Part of me, again, I'll get hit over the head by some of them. I think,
Turn the camera.
yeah, no, I agree to some extent. When even when I eat healthier, I feel better. I'm more focused, so I can see how that impacted me as a child. Because as a child, I ate terribly, and I think I'd have done better if I'd. Do you know what I mean? So there's an element where I'm quite positive of the sugar tax on fizzy drinks and that side of stuff. I don't like, but we've got a high street that is struggling, and it's kind of like that balance is tricky, and so I don't really want to enter.
Yeah, no, okay. Well, maybe next time.
Yeah.
And then, what can we do as a council better, for those shops that we've got boarded up, to keep them more.
I think it comes back down to, and it's weirdly, I've just had a conversation with residents on the Old Kent Road, which is way outside of the bid area, but they wanted some advice on influencing the council in terms of its lettings. And part of me was like, I've been invited to this, and I'm still struggling. And I think it goes back to what we're trying to achieve in the Arch is to enable creative people to start and hopefully grow. And some of them won't grow and some of them will fail. But there's this element of you've got a budget to balance. So you need commercial rents to a certain degree, but with that, you only end up with a certain type of shop. So it's having that oversight, that flexibility. I'd reach out to some of the business, like some of my bid board have run businesses for years, and it's kind of like, it feels as though we're forgetting that they're so good at what they do. And it's kind of like we ignore their advice on who to let units to, and I'm kind of like, why would you do that? Yeah. These people have run businesses for years, and most people don't get to try. So there's an element in society which I'd like that to change, where people do get to try, because it is so difficult and it's so expensive, and that's one element to it. But the ones who do make it have been through that, and they kind of have a better gut instinct on what will work. Some of the shop fronts need to change. They need help with that. Some of them are really good at marketing, and then others I'm kind of like, oh dear. But it's kind of how much can you handhold them? Sorry, I'm way too honest in how.
Thank you. Councillor Batterson, do you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I mean, you obviously touched on some issues that impact businesses nationally in terms of costs, business rates, things like that. But obviously, this commission and this local authority is slightly more restricted in terms of what we can influence. I think one of the things that Councillor Ali touched on was property. You mentioned Brotherhood Games. That was an example of a lettings plan where councillors, as well as the bid, as well as the property team, were involved in selecting who goes in there, and that's significantly increased footfall, and it's brought people who might not come to the area, and that benefits other businesses. Likewise, Bermondsey 223, which is under development at the moment, and that should be open later on this year, and again, that's going to bring a different type of people from outside the area to it, and that again should increase footfall. I suppose there is a question here around, so I think that property is like a really big lever in Bermondsey to kind of help improve the wider area in terms of spend and supporting businesses. You touched on the Admiral shop not being let yet. I know business owners also have challenges in terms of repairs and leaks and things like that, simple things. So I suppose the question really is like, what is it that you think the council can do when it comes to property, whether it's implementing that lettings plan, which I think was being drafted by the property team like not so long ago, so like getting that back up and running, whether it is making sure the lettings are happening quicker than they are currently, because it sounds like there's still a few vacant units that are council owned. What is it you think that the council can do with its property portfolio that would make an impact in and around the Blue?
Cool. Again, I'm not going to be careful with this. We're unsighted, and I think the residents, again, businesses in the Blue and residents on the Old Kent Road, we're a bit unsighted in terms of, and we don't know what and some of it is commercially sensitive, and I get that, but I'd love to know, and I've chatted with Richard on the phone, and he's great, but the Kalmars have an element where we're all unsighted, and I think that might be officers, councillors, business owners. So for me, it'd be like having more transparency to understand what, like, are they paid on a retainer? Are they paid on a commission basis like most commercial agents? Do they take 10, 15%? And part of me would then understand, are we just letting to the highest bidder? And yet again, I could understand some commerciality elements to that, because you'd be like, well, if we get lots from our property portfolio, then we can do more social good. So there's elements where even I understand that would make sense. But for us to understand that bit would be very helpful to then unpick the rest of the process. And it's because it's like knowing who to put forward and how that system looks. There's empty units on the high street as well, and I should really do a bit more research, but I think there's laws in place now where we can do an auction-based letting. I'd like to see that happen. So if someone's not making the changes to their unit and not letting it, it doesn't even have to be in the blue. I just need to know that it exists, so I can then email a property owner and go, well, if you don't let this, look what happened over here. That would be quite useful. Yeah, just visibility on it, I think. Just knowing who's submitting offers in on stuff. And then we might go, actually, I'll go and find some people that I think would change the high street. Whereas at this moment in time, we find people, they try and ask for information on empty units, they get nothing back. And I'm like, and I feel guilty when I then chat with those businesses, because I'll be like, been to the council, and they've said yes. We've been to Kalmars, and now you just need to send something in. And then they don't hear back. And then I'm kind of like, they're my member. They pay in, that's what pays my salary. I feel as though I've failed and I've let them down. And like, I almost feel embarrassed the next time I go into their shop. I almost want to not go in to buy something that I want, because I'm kind of like, oh. And that's not a nice feeling. So, yeah, sorry.
Thank you. I think that's a really good point that we can take away about transparency. Councillor Fowler, did you want to get in?
Yes, thank you. Just say, I used to actually live in the Blue when I first moved to Southwark, and I worked there every day in the biscuit factory.
Nice.
So I'm acutely aware of the area, and especially how much Brotherhood of Games actually brought to the High Street is a real distinctive notice. I was wondering if you could just speak to, on your side, how you actually, is there a pipeline in place for attracting, like, I guess, young talent or young entrepreneurs that want to fill spaces? And have you found that there is quite an appetite for that, or are you struggling to get people to bring proposals towards you?
Well, once we've opened our co-working space in the Railway Arch, I've chatted with Workspace Group and Greystar. Like, we're not in competition with them. Essentially, and Archco, I see us as being a feeder for them. So I don't see us struggling to fill space, because at the price point we're putting it, the filtering process will need to happen. That's the important bit. There's so much across London. Whether all of those, and I might get myself into trouble again, whether they're Southwark residents looking to start a business, I'm not, if I'm honest, I'm not that picky. I'm picky about what they're looking to do. Will it do well for society? Will it provide jobs? Will they grow? That's important to me, because then they might employ Southwark residents. Because I think once you set up in an area as a business, the likelihood that you'll move from that area, even if you grow, is so low. Because as a founder, you'll be linked to some transport link that comes to the area. All of your staff will have moved house in order for their journey into work to be simplified and as short a time span as possible. So I think critical early stage businesses, some of them will grow, some of them will fail, but the ones that grow will provide the jobs, and that's where my head and my heart is at. And then national, I would love the government to do more to support exporters, but that's me going off on a tangent again. So yeah, I don't think we'll struggle to let space. In terms of the bigger units on the high street, I've had some people reach out to me. I forward them on to the council. I've done some again today. I do float them out to the other landlords as well. So I'm kind of like, stuff does come to me where people are looking for space. I forward it on. I ask a few little questions first to try and understand whether they're at a point where the property owner in any form, would welcome me forward in it. I need to know that people are ready to take on space, essentially, and are capable of understanding what they're signing up to. Because if I forward everyone to every property owner, at some point, every property owner would get frustrated with me. So there is a bit of filtering that happens, but that's to maintain relationships with both the council and the other landlords in the area. Was that?
Amazing. Yeah, can I just quickly ask one follow-up? Sorry, very quickly. So how much of the percentage of the area does BID control over, like, how many units? Do you control the units themselves? No, so you're purely just...
We're one unit in a railway arch that's meanwhile space. Early stage discussions with Archco, and it seemed fairly genuine. I like their property development director. He seemed honest, but I've worked in the property industry for long enough to know that that's not always the case. We might stay in that arch long term, but at this moment in time, it's a short-term lease. But the stuff we're looking at longer term, so I've brought the Bartlett into those conversations with Archco in terms of developing a co-working space in partnership with the Bartlett's #1 university for architecture in the world. So I'm hoping that in a weird way, we can support people in the local area alongside a top university and create almost like an anchor. So the pitch to Archco, again, this is live, but who cares? The pitch to Archco would be, you've got an anchor tenant. The pitch to BID members would be, we're working with world-class institutions to try and improve the area from like a testing bed for architectural improvements within the local vicinity. So it would tick a number of things, but yeah, we're only one unit, and I have an understanding of how long that lease is, but not the window beyond it. But today we got planning permission to put the fire exit in the far end of the unit, so it can actually be used. Again, government, not local. I wish there was deemed planning consent, or whatever the correct wording is, for fire exits, because if I've got a unit that I can't use without a fire exit, and then I have to submit a planning application using an architect that costs us $5,000. And I'm like, the architect's great. They're a local business. They're in the biscuit factory. They're brilliant. But it's a bit of spend where I'm kind of like, what? Sorry.
Okay. Councillor Griffiths, would you like to ask a question?
Thanks very much. You mentioned you came last year. It was quite a different group last year, so I just want to make sure that you realise how valuable this is, and I really appreciate your presentation. I'm going to go back to something you mentioned about reporting theft and crime.
Yes.
It's something that we experience in my ward as well, and I'm going to call out Sainsbury's as the people who report crimes where I live. They've been really good about it. But I really struggle to encourage people to report their crimes, and so I have the same problem that you have, and I'd be really interested to hear a little bit more about the trial that you mentioned that you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
Just to understand if there are any learnings there that the council could take on, because I appreciate there are things that the police can and can't do, if that's okay.
Yeah, they're way more flexible than I thought. So initially they provide us with their reporting form, and we made some QR codes that businesses could stick in their shops, and it would take them through to this PDF. The PDF looks a bit long, so you look at it and you go, I'll never fill this out, it'll take me hours, So I chatted with them today. We're going to, do you know how you get, not cheated, but when you fill out a form online, it shows you 2 questions and then you click next, and it shows you another 2 questions, you click next. And you kind of go through the process, but that psychological trick gets you through the process. That's all we're going to do. We're just going to take as much of it as we can out, turn as much of it into check boxes and drop downs as we can. And that will just go to, and they're being really supportive, both Kevin Webster and Karina, I can't remember her saying them. But as a Safer Neighbourhood team, I think they're great. And although local businesses will moan through the teeth that they're not doing enough, part of it is on us as businesses to report stuff so that they get more resource to focus on the area, because it's a problem. So it's not all on the public sector or the police. There's some of it that we need to shoulder as well.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston?
Hi, thank you. It's been really informative listening to you. I had two questions. So one was regarding your current working relationship with the council. So I did pick up on the good growth funding allocation blip where you hadn't really been consulted in how the funding would be used. You had been slightly.
It predates me,
Right.
and I've got a feeling that as a bid, we were supportive of those implementations.
Right.
I think there's an element of Russell was amazing. He was a fishmonger in the blue. His community spirit was massive. The
Right.
amount he did was above and beyond a bid manager. He was like a councillor. He wasn't a councillor, but in his terms of his aura.
Okay.
Everyone went to Russell to understand, and he made stuff happen, and he made the bid happen, which I think is mind-blowing. Like, I've worked in a very beginning of my career. We helped, again, working for Pat Brown, helped get the legislation through the Houses of Parliament for bids to exist. And so I get that process, but normally they're in really dense commercial centre locations, big tenants, big national organisations. He managed to set up a bid in an area where you've got a lot of family, small businesses, and he convinced them that they needed a bid, and they set one up. And that's mind-blowing, because when you're a small business, every pound matters. And he got there. But there's an element within that fund, so there was no one at the mayor's office and no one potentially at the council who put a hand on his shoulder and said, I don't think you should allow businesses to put fully blocked out metal shutters on there.
Oh, I see.
So there's an element where I'm kind of like, part of it's us.
Okay, apologies for misunderstanding, and thank you for
No.
clarifying.
Yeah.
My question was actually going to build from that, so thank you for clarifying on that. I did slightly misunderstand. Overall, how well integrated do you think the Business Innovation District has been into the town centre strategy? So the town centre plan for Bermondsey, do you feel that the Business Innovation District have been regularly consulted in, not only developing that plan, but also the implementation and monitoring? And then my second question was going to be what your relationship is with other Business Innovation Districts around the borough. So I think at the moment there's 5, but I know there's appetite for a lot at the moment across. So I've heard rumours about Peckham, Elephant Castle. So yeah, I did hear that you spoke to some people in Old Kent Road and you've been giving some advice, but just want to know, as a community of business and innovation districts that are based in Southwark, how are you guys liaising together, and what is the appetite, I guess, to help aspiring shopkeepers and business owners that want to set up new business innovation districts in Southwark?
Yeah, I work really closely with the other bids. So first and foremost, they're amazing. So Nadia at Team London Bridge, Nick at South Bank, Kate at Better Bankside. I'm missing someone. I feel really bad now. But yeah, they're all of the bids, the established bids, are great, and they've been established for a long time. So they've got a lot. And they get really successful turnouts and really significant votes. They're very different from the blue. They're very different. And we've met recently with lots of the bids that are looking to establish. I think when I look back at even the blue, I think it got a grant or a loan. I think it might have been from the council. I think it was a loan, because I think when I look back through the old bank statements, I think we had to pay it back. And part of me is like, hang on, someone's gone out of their way, fishmonger, market store, to set up a bid to get businesses to put more money into the local area. Yes, some of it's for commercial purposes, but a lot of it is to do community events. And he's done all of that, and then you want it back. I might need to check that, but I think from our bank statements, that's what I managed to gather. So I think that, yeah, some type of funding to help those businesses, really key. The modelling of what a bid can generate needs to be, they need help with that. Because when I look at it, because I was involved in bid, it's the same with everything, isn't it? When you've been involved with something from a very early stage, you go, oh, why do you need help with that? That's really easy. But it's not if you come into it for the first time. So I think, yeah, they need a bit of support in terms of what they can bring in. And most of the locations will be at like a small levy income. So I think there's something in that for... And the Mayor's office have been supportive, so certain stuff where they'd normally charge bids a significant amount for, yeah, again, I'm being too open, they've been very flexible with us. So there's people are helping us. Local economy team, great. So OP, Danny Williams, is it Danny Edwards? Yeah, sorry. I think there's been a change of staff recently where... I've forgotten her name now. She's moved into the green team. Help me out. Libby, yeah. So I don't know who's Libby's replacement is yet, unless I've missed an email. So that'd be useful. The strategy is useful. I could probably apply it to a lot of high streets, is my gut feeling. I'm not a document person, though, and I never have been.
Sorry, I think my question might have got lost because it was quite verbose. So one part was, the first part in terms... let me start with the second part, because I think you've answered that just now, which was the contact you have with the other business innovation districts, which you've explained are different in character. So it's quite limited, but you are in touch with them.
Yeah.
And then I also spoke about the support you were offering to newer business innovation districts, and you've kind of given us quite a few pointers for us to take away and how the council could support them in starting up. So that's been great. So my initial question was, sorry, I'll be more brief next time. My initial question was about how well integrated do you think you've been as a business innovation district on developing the town centre plan for Bermondsey? So how well do you think you've been consulted by the local authority on the development of those plans, then their subsequent implementation and monitoring?
Very well. Like, the team reach out to us a lot. I think there's an element on me and the bid here where we might not have done enough, or I might not have done enough. That's probably a better way of wording it. In terms of, so I'm 18 months in, so part-time, maybe that's a year and a bit. So I've now got my feet under the table. So there's an element now where I know a lot more of the businesses. When there was certain stuff we didn't have a proper database. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, so we've had to do a lot of the really dull admin, which you've just got to do. So I think we're in a better position now to properly consult with the businesses. In terms of a bid and a bid board, I think we did enough. In terms of the wider business community, especially the ones in the biscuit factory, I think we're way off. Because when I chat with most of them, it's kind of like, yeah, we come into work and we work, and then we walk to the tube station and we disappear. And it's kind of like, what do those people want from the area, and what can they give as well? And I think this comes back to your question earlier. We put in a bid to the Mayor's office for the Green Routes Fund, because I want the businesses and the schools to improve the open spaces within the housing, within the social housing, within the flats. In those spaces, I want both businesses as volunteer days and the schools, because if everyone has input, then you take ownership and you protect it and you take care of it. That stewardship just doesn't seem to have happened. And I've digressed again. So I'm worse. Way worse.
All right, so Councillor Benavides, do you want to ask a question?
Hi, Ben. Thank you very much for your presentation. You suggested that business owners could be handheld with the schools to find talents, right? I love this idea, and I don't want it to be lost. I want us to remember it and to move it forward. And in your view, how can the council facilitate it? What would be the best way, in your view, to get the business owners with the schools and to find young talents to work in the local businesses?
I think part of it is that in the very early days when I was reaching out to the schools, and maybe this is me an idiot because apart from working at Sure Start, I never really worked. Oh no, I have. I've worked at a university. Sorry, I was way off. Schools seem understaffed, or they struggle to like. I think when we reach out, I think they must get a lot of businesses reach out to them. And it's kind of like that brokerage bit, I think, in terms of that ability to respond, knowing that it will go somewhere, and what the expectations of the different parties are. And I think that might unlock an element of that. So whether there's an intermediary within the council who can work with the schools to help them work with us, but I don't really want to be too far removed from the teachers and the head teachers, because they're the ones who will know these pupils really well. And they're the ones who are going to be able to say, to a certain degree, because even I've got it wrong when recruiting people in the past, but they'll be the best ones to advise us. So there's an element of resource there in terms of freeing up time for those individuals to have those conversations. I think that's the bit that Yeah,
maybe find talent champions within the schools, people that would voluntarily be willing to help these talents within the schools, and for them to work with the business owners. In each school, we could have this young talent champion that it work like in a football team to look and find the best and place them.
And I'd be happy to push this back on the businesses and say, listen, if someone comes through this system and they stay with you for a number of years, so let's say they're with that business for 5 years, I'd be like, business, in the past you might have paid a recruitment agency. Can we not put some money into the school and say, actually, this person worked and we want to reward the school for that, and they can spend it on whether that's more outward bounds, whatever. I think there's a metric there which we can say, find us the best pupils or the most capable within that work environment, and we should be able to make that work, because they make it work for other commercial transactions. So
within companies, they if you recommend someone that stays for longer, you get compensation for that. So that could be a new initiative within the business owners to get this ball rolling.
Yeah, some of the businesses might hit me over the head and go, Ben, what are you doing? But part of me believes in this. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I think everybody's had a chance to ask you a question, so it's been great. It's great to have you here, and I think we've got a few takeaways, particularly about how we can support other bids getting started, and also about the transparency I think you mentioned in terms of like how businesses can get into the local area, and what else did I know?
That relationship with Calmars, I think for me, and equally residents who are interested in the lettings along their high streets and local areas, I think that's useful, and whether that can be as transparent as possible. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, that was it. I think those were the crucial ones. Yes, so thank you for your time.
Thank you. Awesome.
Okay, if it's okay with everyone, we're now going to move on to our next item on the agenda, item 6, which is the outcome of the Ofsted inspection of local authority children's services. So I'd like to invite the officers from the children's services. So if you could please introduce yourselves, and then give us your chat about the report, and then we'll ask follow-up questions.
Hello, my name is Helen Woolgar and I'm the Deputy Director of Children's Social Care, and I'll pass to my colleague.
Hi everyone, I'm Yinka Olaniran. I'm the Head of Quality Assurance and Workforce Development for Children's Services.
And so we've come to the committee today to talk about the Ofsted inspection. The committee have had the report and our summary of it, so I won't speak too much to give opportunity for questions. Ofsted visited us in March and our report was published in May. It was a week-long inspection, and that was because when we were inspected in 2022 we were found to be good, and colleagues will see within this report the outcome this time was good as well across the board, and they found many strengths, which was really pleasing. We work really collaboratively with children in care and our children in care and care leavers, and so I think credit for the inspection report is our workforce, but also Speaker Box is our committee for children in care, and they're really powerful and have really helped us to develop our services. In terms of the findings from the inspection, what was good for us as senior leaders was that there were many strengths that they identified. They were the strengths that we had seen within ourselves, so that was within our self-assessment, and they also saw some areas that we would like to make even better, because our aspiration for our children in care and for the families we support in Southwark is we want to be outstanding. So our outcome was good, but we continue to strive to get to outstanding and are on a pathway to try to do that through our co-development work with parents and with the workforce, and we're in a process of reform at the moment, so colleagues will be aware of the Families First reforms and how children's social care is reshaping. So alongside our improvement, we're changing lots of things at the same time to make things better for children and families. There's a few key strengths that I will highlight, and then I'll highlight some areas for development, and then Yinka, my colleague who joined on the day that the inspection began, so I am the old of Southwark. I've been here a very long time, but Yinka literally joined the day Ofsted arrived, and he leads quality assurance, which is the department that work to look at the quality of our practice and continually challenge us to think how can we do even better for children and families. So he's kind of like Scrutiny, kind of scrutiny within the council to help us to continue to do better. But in terms of some of the key strengths, which you'll have read in the report, they saw strong political and corporate leadership and stable leadership. We have people that have stayed a long time and really care and want to make a difference for children. They saw a stable, skilled and motivated workforce. People really know their children and work really hard for them. One of the feedback sessions I liked the most was that the Ofsted inspectors said when they were meeting with the PAs who work with care leavers, the PAs were taking calls from care leavers and texting them back, even when meeting with the inspectors, because they cared so much about, actually, I need to get back to this young person because they've got an appointment to get a job or something. So they were, our PAs weren't thinking, we're here to serve Ofsted. They were thinking, we're here to do the best we can for children and young people. And at one time, we supported care leavers till 18, but now, during this inspection period, we're supporting our care leavers till 25 and are really committed to doing that. Another thing that's a real strength that was highlighted in the report that I'm very proud of is the parent advocates. We have parent advocates who support parents in child protection conferences, so they're people that have worked with children's social care and come out the other side and can really walk in the shoes of parents who are facing their children being on child protection plans, and they're really helping to reshape and reform, and parents say that that has made a big difference. And part of the government reforms are having more family-based decision making, so now we have the opportunity, even at the front door to our services, that if a family are in need of help and support, we can offer them an independently chaired family group conference so that the family can come together, their network together, and look at how to make the best plan to help the child within their family, and we can put resources and support around that. And over years, we've seen a reduction in the numbers of children in care, and that has been because of the work that has gone in to support families to stay together. And again, within the report, they note the quality of our family early help service. So we're not waiting till there's a crisis. There is earlier help available for families, which is really positive and really good. They noted positive strengths around Speakerbox, who are just utterly impressive as a group of young people and have been going for 20 years and get stronger each year. Strengths in the Corporate Parenting Committee, which is a committee like this committee, but very much now young people are there kind of in charge, running it at the centre of what we do. And all of those things were strengths that they saw. And they saw innovation and how we were trying and to strive to make services better, and that we really know and understand our services. But also they saw areas, and they highlighted 3 key areas that we need to improve. And these were areas that we knew that we needed to do some work on. So children subject to police protection. So Southwark had a higher number of children who were becoming subject to police protection powers, and our oversight and our work together with our partners in the police around police protection is something for us to improve, and we have a plan and we're working on improving that. And also a really important one, in Southwark we have a lot of adolescents coming into care, so children between 15 and 17 coming into care, sometimes a bit younger, 14 and 13, and sometimes those children, even when living with their families, are going missing, maybe being exploited. And when they're coming into care, we have a cohort of those children where we desperately don't want them to go missing, but sometimes that pattern continues, and inspectors saw, and I agree, we need to do even more to prevent children from going missing, and also make it more inviting for children to stay where they are. Like if home is a really good place, if that offers really great stuff, you're less likely to go missing. So we have a strategy and a plan that Yinka will talk to around how we are going to help children to go missing less. And also Ofsted identified that how we write supervision and management oversight, that was something we could improve and are going to improve. They also saw strength around the clinical service and the supports that we provide, but management oversight is something that they asked us to work on. And in some ways that's about how it's written down. And I think you never fully capture on a child's record that a child's record never fully captures the work that has gone on. So it's how much time do you spend out there doing the helping with children and families, and how much do you spend writing beautiful records. It's a difficult balance to get right, but they saw that that was something we could get better. And then other areas where they saw that we could make further improvement, and I think we have made improvement, but we can keep going and keep getting even better, is ensuring life story work is embedded and that all children have that. So I feel like we've been on a journey, and that's so much stronger than it was, but Ofsted said keep going, that can get even better. And improving consideration of early permanence arrangements, so that's for children who have a plan of adoption, being able to go to their family even earlier. So that was something that Ofsted said could improve. Since Ofsted left, we've had lots of children go to early permanence, which isn't linked to Ofsted, but just happened to be the right plan for those children. So I feel like that is something that improved, but at the time they came, we didn't have lots of children in those arrangements. Since then, we have had many more children go, which has had impact. And then our care leaver offer, we're refreshing that offer on our website. That's something that we knew we wanted to make better, and we're doing that, and we're co-developing it with care leavers. And we've got a Be Inspired event next Friday for care leavers, which is run by one of our care leavers who's a hugely inspiring person who went to Cambridge University and now presents on the BBC, and he now runs cross-London events for care leavers, but his Southwark was his home and where he started, and we're one of the local authorities that work with him, so we're doing that work to improve the local offer. And we're also really committed to improving our quality assurance, and that's why it was perfect timing for Yinka to join us literally on the first day of the inspection to help us think about areas to improve. So I'll pass to Yinka to give a short flavour of how we're working on those improvements.
Thank you so much. So since we had the inspection, we've actually reflected as a directorate, and we've come up with 7 key objectives areas for improvement. And one of the key aspects that, Ellen mentioned that came out in the inspection is about our police protection plan. And some of these objectives we've actually accomplished, and others we continue to work on and review. So just to highlight, we've amended our practice guidance, and this now includes requirement for a review strategy meeting where safety arrangement is being monitored. We also have a 6-weekly joint local authority and police meeting to convene, and this is where we review all police protection, plans. One of the aspects we've also looked into that will help us with monitoring our performances, we have a performance dashboard, which we call Power BI. That has also been updated to include police protection specific reporting that will increase live management oversight. And on my part, that was completed in July. On my part, in September this year and in March 2027, I will be doing a SIP monthly overview of our practice audits, and that we explicitly look into the police protection plan. In terms of the second objective is around improving response to children who are in care, who are going missing. So we have since established a cross-service missing improvement steering group, and this is to drive improvement and increase the space and coordination of improvement activity. That is actually led by our Assistant Director for the Youth, Family Early Help and Youth Justice. We've also established weekly missing panel, and that is being chaired by the Head of Service for Youth Justice as well. And this will review all missing children and performance against key indicators. And one of the things we'll be looking at from September this year is deliver missing and absent training to key workers and carers, because we believe one of the missing gap is the knowledge that we need to embed within our workforce. And in November this year, we're aiming to evaluate return on interviews effectiveness and the capacity against family first reforms. And this will help us to understand and have opportunity for potential resource investment. So our third objective is how we improve the quality and consistency of management oversight. Just like Ellen mentioned earlier, it's not really about the recording, but for us it's the quality. And also looking at how our audit structure translates into better outcome for children. For example, where we've audited cases, we want to ensure that this triangulates into how we measure the impact for children and young people. So we'll amend our service-by-service performance reporting templates, and this will strengthen the monthly reporting expectations. So I chair what we call the squares. The squares is actually a performance meeting, and this will mean that all our service managers, head of service, we on a monthly basis report into the quality of our oversight and supervision. And again, like I said earlier, all of these objectives will be reviewed September this year and March 2027. A key aspect of our improvement plan is also our life story work. So life story work is how we help children and young people understand their journey. And one of the key things we've done is develop and publish new life story work policy. And we also have embedded dedicated life story work practitioners all across our directorate, so that there is a weekly meeting where a life story work practitioner will meet with our workforce. If I go to the last one about improving the consistency of the quality of our auditing. So one of the things I started driving is looking to our audit cycle, and we've come up with a redesign of our audit framework. So we've expanded now our audit cycle. Instead of 2 audit cycle per year, it's now 4. And we also have embedded, well, that has been in place before I joined Southwark. We have our Learning First. So our Learning First is actually a practice learning week, a whole week where we review and look into our practice framework, and with a team on what we actually focus on. For example, we had one just a month after I joined the directorate, and that theme was actually focused on domestic abuse and how we look into how we can work collaboratively to minimize the impact of domestic abuse on children and families. So we are on a journey. I'm happy and excited that we've come a long way, and we swiftly, sprung into action in terms of driving our improvement plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really helpful and really well laid out in terms of all the timelines. Has anyone got any immediate questions? Councillor Johnston?
Thank you both. I'm just going to clear something up. Earlier I was saying innovation district. It's because I used to work on innovation districts, but I did mean improvement districts, sorry, just for the minute. But thank you both for coming. It really was a good report, and it was lovely to see the strengths highlighted in such a nice, overall piece of writing. There were some things that stuck out to me, and I guess the two key things were the areas of improvement that featured on the previous report. So that being how we're responding when children go missing in terms of doing the interviews when they return home, and also the life story work. So my first question is, how have we altered our approach? So kind of what has been the journey since 2022 to the current Ofsted, and how are we changing gears, and to what degree has consulting external best practice, maybe regional or national, informed that? And then my second question was actually around early help. So I did notice that there was some process that needs to be simplified, because there was a cohort of kids, small cohort, that were missing out on early help support in a timely fashion. So it would be good if you could expand on that cohort and what the plans are in place for that. Thank you.
So I'll go to your last question first, if that's okay, because it's in my mind. Early help support was really good, but yes, you're completely right. They did find that for some families there was a complicated process and more of a delay in getting that help. We have since then, and it's part of the Families First reforms, reshaped the front door. We're still in the process of doing that. So we used to have 2 pathways to get help. You could go straight to family early help, or you could go through what we called the MASH, the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub. We've brought that together into one, and so there is one, as well as all the help in the community, and there is brilliant help through the family hubs and kind of out there before you get to children's social care. We now have one front door. That's different since Ofsted came, and we are building more partners into that front door. So we have 2 housing colleagues who are due to join us and will be in that door, because many of the families coming through, the thing they need the help with most might not be a social worker, it might be help with housing that really helps the family. So we're going to have 2 housing officers, and we're going to have a rapid response team. So we've looked at some of the complicated processes are processes that we create. Some are created because of the data that the government asks us to collect about things, but we have simplified that, and we will have one front door that's like happening live now this month, and we're also going to have within that front door a rapid response team that is all about getting help very quickly to families, and that rapid response team will have a diverse group of people within it from different qualification backgrounds, so not just social workers, but people that really know Southwark, know the community, people like our parent advocates that have trained and worked with us, who will be providing help in a more swift fashion. So we recognise that while family early help is good, to get it better, we had to redesign some of how we deliver services. So I can't say that that's like the impact that's having yet, because we're literally doing it. Consultation has been since kind of April time, and we're implementing it now. So we recognise that, and we're taking action on that point.
Before you answer the first question, may I ask, where is that reflected? Because it's not in this current improvement plan.
So yes, it's not in the improvement plan, in part because we've literally just finished a consultation on making that change, and it had impact upon structures and roles, and it was literally maybe last week or the week before when that consultation finished, but that's something we could think about. We could think about how to embed that into the plan. That was change that we were making, but we were making it in part because of the government reforms, but it's a good point about linking to what Ofsted had said as well, and we could look at integrating that into the improvement plan, so that's helpful. Thank you. We can take that away. And then the life story work journey, I mean, that has been, so you're right, in 2022 that needed to get better. So in order to get it better, we created posts, a dedicated life story worker, and the first person we had doing that was utterly brilliant, but did utterly brilliant work with lots of individual children, which didn't hit across our entire system. So she was great if she went out and worked with you, but of course she couldn't work with all of our children. And now we've got another person in that post, and they've developed lots of materials, lots of training, and they're really building a network of champions across and training across, and they're running weekly sessions. So the process kind of started with having expertise to deliver good life story work, and I thought we'd really made progress, but actually it wasn't hitting enough of our children. It wasn't impacting the wider group. And so now we have somebody who's working in a more system-wide way to really train. It's not good enough to have one expert in life story work. We actually need all of our social workers and in our care leaving service, our PAs, all to be thinking about life story work and to always be thinking about how to deliver that. So we started the improvement in one way, and now we're growing it in other ways. And life story work has become now more like visits. So within social care, we check, we monitor, have we done all of our visits to children? Whereas now in the meetings that Yinka is, and Yinka had a recent one and was really challenging on life story work and wanting it rolled out even more. And we've also now got a workflow. So at one time, I would be able to tell you if every child in Southwark had been visited on a child protection plan, if every child looked after had been visited, but I wouldn't have honestly been able to tell you whether they all had life story work. Now we have a bespoke workflow, so we can look and we can report in the square meetings on the percentage of children, and then we can go in and look, and our expectation when doing the audits that Yinka described will be that if you're auditing a child's file or a care leaver's file, that you go in and you look at that workflow and you can see that that's completed, and you can see what is that life story. Is it photographs? Is it the All About Me book? So I guess that would describe the journey with life story work. We came on some of the journey, but my reflection was we hadn't got quite as far as we needed to be, and we're continuing to evolve that through this improvement plan. Missing children, I've spoken a bit. Do you want to speak more about missing children, or do you want me to, Yinka? Should I keep going? So, I mean, it is an ongoing challenge. We have a dedicated missing team. We have return home interviewers within the missing team. We're trying hard with that, but some of the young people who've come into care, certainly a couple of the children I can think of, really were continuing to go back to places that were exploitative and not good, and we were failing to break that cycle, and they were coming back. And then we would try to do a return home interview, and then they would go again. So we have looked nationally at research, some of the University of Durham research and Carleen Furman, and our approach to extrafamilial harm. We've been working with the Exit Foundation, so quite a lot of our children have who have experienced exploitation now have mentors to sometimes help break that cycle, the relationship cycle, and help form a relationship with the young person. We've done work with Speakerbox as well. And some of what's interesting with Speakerbox as well is some of what they said was sometimes when they were living in children's homes, people are reporting them missing when they're not missing. And so some of our reporting of missing is slightly overrepresented, and we need to work harder with family networks, because actually at 16 and 17, going and staying with a friend overnight, going to have a boyfriend or girlfriend at that age can be within the range of things, but some children within care can be reluctant to tell the children's home or their social worker the details of their friend, because they might feel worried about saying to their friend that they're in care. That can be hard when you're 16 or 17, but I think we need to work harder, and are working harder, to be clear about when are young people genuinely missing and we really don't know where they are, compared to when are they. A recent example, I saw a young person was on a train and phoned the children's home and said, I'm on the train, I'm stuck on the train, it's running late, and the children's home still reported that young person missing. Whereas I'd kind of be like, no, I don't think think they're missing because I've got a 17-year-old daughter, and if she can text me and tell me where she is and I can go get her or whatever, she's not missing, she's just later home than I want her to be. So some of it is about improving our approach to that, which is evolving, and I think you're right, we do need to look at best practice outside, but also we have such amazing care leavers who come to corporate parenting and are in speaker box who we can talk to, some of whom have experienced missing episodes when they're younger and can give us expertise and think about that. And we've also thought about, we've trained young inspectors who are care leavers to go and visit children's homes and visit supported accommodation to check the quality of that, and we pay them to be young inspectors, and we haven't done it yet, but we have thought about paying some of our care leavers to train to be return home interviewers so that they can talk to young people after they've been missing to help us to understanding why someone went missing and what we can do to stop that.
Thank you. Councillor Ali, would you like to ask? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say thank you. They were tough questions and you answered them really well. Also, I'm a care leaver of Southwark, so I understand the whole missing person stuff. As soon as the clock struck 12, my foster mum was reporting everyone missing, but no one was missing. And technically, they were just out and not coming home until the next day. So I do understand that pressure.
Councillor Ali, do you want to go ahead?
I'll just come out of my scrutiny role for 5 seconds and then I'll dive back into it. I mean, I just wanted to say, thank you, Helen, and thank you, Yinka, and, the entire Children's Services, really. It's a tough inspection, but I tell you, we did so well. Ofsted praised the leadership, the stable workforce, early help, corporate parenting, and the support for children and care leavers. I mean, it was stunning, really. I mean, I remember being in that room when they gave feedback, and I did actually say to the lead inspector, it's so strong and it's good across all of these categories. Why isn't it outstanding? And she said, oh, Jasmine, don't do that. Just go and thank your team and praise them for the amazing work. But actually, one wonders, what you have to do in order to get outstanding because, the commitment and the team and the hard work, so sorry, I just wanted to get that out. Right, now, you'll be pleased I'll get back into my role of scrutiny. I prepared just some questions, really. I mean, I think... we said, didn't we, that, that Ofsted did identify 3 key areas, police protecting children in care go missing and management supervision, and we've covered most of that now. So I guess, really, on those, I just wanted to ask, which area currently for you presents the greatest risk? You have shown how measurable progress has been since the inspection. When will scrutiny receive evidence showing improved outcomes for children rather, than the back of this report? When could, i.e., how can we help you get over the line and into the outstanding, because I think that scrutiny will play a valuable role in that. The second one, if I may, is Ofsted praised Southwark stable workforce, early help services and strong corporate parenting. Now, how will, in your view, the council protect these strengths during acute financial pressure? I mean, obviously we saw at the beginning of the week, the nest was, basically at risk. So how will children, care leavers, frontline staff help assess whether services remain effective? And can we be assured that future changes to preventative services will not undermine the early intervention system that was so praised throughout this report by Ofsted? So that's my question. Thank you.
I can start. Thank you for that. I think your first question was about the aspect of the greatest challenge. And if I may, I would say that would be the missing aspect. And of course, with everything that Ellen has explained in terms of, the challenges. But I'm positive with the development plan that we have in place. And I think most importantly for me is the weekly missing panel. And that would mean that we're keeping track of everything that is going on. And that would also mean that we have consistency in our approach as well. I'm happy with the training that we'll be putting in place. so that everyone have a broader understanding of when to actually report. And most importantly, in the area of missing would be the return home interview. And I'm glad with the approach that we put in place as well, so that we don't get anything missing. But also is the data, a data framework, which we call Power BI, just like Ellie mentioned earlier. That would mean that we're able to track and see. And at every performance meeting that I chair, this is actually one of the key aspects. So we've also looked into a performance meeting whereby they used to provide us with reports, but now we change it about just immediately after offset that we will present live reports all across our performance indicators. And that would mean that this aspect of missing, we're looking. So back to your question, this is our greatest challenge, but I'm positive that we will pull through. In terms of providing assurances, if you look at, the aspect of by when, I mean, September is around the corner, and all across our improvement plan, you will see that clearly. I will be providing report in September and also in March 2027. So that would mean that whatever it is that we put in place from the end of April up until the end of August, I will be reporting on that in September. And that would mean that we're measuring all our smart plans. And where we feel actually we're not measuring up or firming up, we will look into what we can do in terms of contingency plan. Yeah.
In relation to your question about government reforms and keeping a good early help offer, I think that that's been key to our planning from the beginning of planning. I mean, some of the government reforms are quite prescriptive, so we can't totally change them, but we have met with our frontline practitioners, parents and young people to think about the design, and we're going to be going out to consultation in the autumn, but we've tested things out in a pilot with social workers working and alternatively qualified practitioners, and have had good outcomes from that. And one of the feedbacks from schools is our current system, people change a lot. You move through our system and get different workers, and the new system will mean less changes. And what's really positive as well for us, as at one time we used to have a lot of agency social workers, there was real difficulty in recruitment, and we're getting to an almost fully permanent workforce now. So we have a lot more, as we're making this change, we have a lot more stable workforce. So I feel confident that the changes, although change can be challenging, that at the centre we've got providing the right help for families at the right time, and wanting to provide that early through rapid response, and the way we've redesigned the one front door. So I'm confident that we can deliver the reforms, and within the change process we are wanting to make our services better, good. We were pleased with the good, but I want better by the time of the next inspection, and think we can achieve it even with the changes and the reforms. And the budget question, I don't fully know how to answer that question. At the moment, I feel we have good services that are well funded, and hope very much that maintains, that position maintains, and that we continue to have. I've always felt incredibly well supported. I think David, our strategic director, is here. Alistair, our DCS, is away. I feel we've had good support from our most senior leadership, and really good support from our counsellors, all of our counsellors who are corporate parents and care deeply about our children. So I feel optimistic, based on my experience of Southwark, that we will continue to have the money to deliver great services for our children.
Thank you. Councillor Batson?
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, I just want to say congratulations to the team. I think here in Southwark we can get quite used to good and outstanding judgments and ratings, and I think there's just like a lot of work that goes on behind that. So I just want to say just a very quick well done and thank you. I suppose one of my questions, Helen, was around, like, am I right in thinking this was the last inspection that was carried out under the previous framework, so the next one will be a new one, and I think the new one would sort of take away the kind of overarching, like, so I suppose I think I've asked this question before to education colleagues actually, which is like, how do you think that do you think there'll be any changes in terms of how the local authority responds and adapts, not to the changes in legislation, but future inspections to kind of prepare ourselves for whenever that might be. And then a second quick question, if I may. I mean, corporate parenting just kind of weaves its way right through this report, slightly concerning that the meeting last week was cancelled. I mean, I don't think that's happened for years. The corporate parenting takes place every month, every quarter, sorry. So there's 4 meetings a year. One last week was just cancelled. And I think maybe I'll get told off for this, but I think it probably is the one of, if not the most important committee that the council delivers, because it is, you know, how we as a local authority support people in care. And I think that's, if not the most important thing that this local authority does, then it's certainly up there. So I was a bit concerned that the committee was cancelled last week without it being pushed back another perspective. The next committee is happening in October. So I just wondered if somebody might be able to explain why it was cancelled without a replacement quite shortly after. Because I do think sort of 6-7 months in between corporate parenting committee meetings is probably a bit too long.
So in relation to your first question about the change in judgments, there won't be, as you say, an overall effectiveness, but there will still be grades on all of the other aspects. So for children in care, and I went to a meeting recently that Ofsted were in, and they said they're absolutely going to keep at the heart of it the experience and progress of care leavers, because they think that's core to a council. Like, if we're not doing right by our care leavers, if we're not getting that right, that is core. So that's still going to be there. Some of the language is going to be different, and they also explained that if councils have any children in unregulated homes, that you will be limited and will not be able to achieve good. So if you have children not in registered provision, we have no children. I want to touch some wood, because of course you never know what can happen, but we have no children in unregulated provision. All of our children are in regulated provision. So I don't know about there still will be, I feel like there still will be grades. They'll be worded differently and there won't be an overarching grade, but I think we still, we need to focus on doing the best we can for families and for children, and not focus, we're not serving Ofsted, we're not here to kind of achieve the top grade for the sake of marks on us. It is if we deliver well for children and families and focus on that, we should achieve the best grade. So I'm not sure about that change in terms of not having an overarching grade, because I feel like it's still kind of there, because you've still got the other categories. So if you've got mainly goods or mainly outstandings or mainly, but they are changing the language, so it won't be good and outstanding, it's different language they'll use. So I guess we'll have to adapt to that. We have annual meetings with Ofsted, and they are devising a new framework. So I'm not sure what the impact of that will be, but I feel like if we keep our focus on what's right for children and families, and focus on that, and continue to build on our strengths and work really hard on the areas they've given us to improve, and that we knew already we needed to improve, then we should do well within a framework. But there are, we'll focus on that. And then, did you want to say more about that? Because
yes, I mean, we were actually just talking about that coming into this meeting in terms of, the grading and the changes and all of that. And I suppose Ellen is right. The key change would actually be around the language. And I think all of this is actually born out of everything that's happened within Ofsted and the rating and all of that across the country. But our focus remains the best interest of children, and we will just continue working on how we can provide the best of service and, serve our children and young people.
And then your second question, which was about corporate parenting committee, of course, working with children in care and care leavers is like my passion. I love corporate parenting committee because of how great our young people are and children are within that. My understanding, and it's not a decision so as officers we don't decide, it's a meeting that's chaired by the lead member for children and families. My understanding is it is postponed because we're going to have one in October, and then I think where the corporate parenting strategy is going to come and young people will be doing stuff, and then we're going to have an additional one in December. So I think it's postpone, like we are going to have an additional one and make it up, is my understanding, but it's not something we decide on, we as officers go, and I think it is a great committee, and children make a fantastic contribution.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in there. I mean, I had the same concerns really that John had, so I wrote, basically I wrote to the Secretariat, and the lead member came back and said that I was right, it had been cancelled, but they will be putting a new date in. And the point that I made was I felt that it was too long to wait until October for young people, their champions, and, you know, and indeed people supporting them. So my understanding that there would be, from reading that there would be, you know, there would be one, not in December, but what additional in December, but there would be one, you know, in between now and October, really. So just for the record, if we could double check that, because it does feel, as John said, quite a long time.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Mana Kagbo.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to apologize for being a bit late. My train was delayed, yeah. And I would like to commend you for retaining the overall good rating for the Ofsted report. Concerning the areas of development or improvement that was mentioned in the report, what lesson has the council learned from the inspection, and how will this lesson lead to sustain improvement? That's the first question. Secondly, how is the council ensuring that children's voices and experience are central to care planning and risk assessment?
Okay, well, I just recently joined Southwark, but, you know, I'm not saying that as an excuse. I mean, we have learned a lot, you know, from the Ofsted inspection, which is one of the reasons why we have swiftly come together and see how we can put an improvement plan in place. I think most importantly for us is the consistency in everything that we do, and that is one of the key lessons for us to be consistent. So say, for example, the aspect of the life story work as mentioned, it's not as though it's not being done, but how we can translate that across our services. And one of the things we're doing now is actually life story work from, you know, all the tools that we're using from the front door, and seeing that all across, and not just leaving it to one aspect of, you know, the service area. In terms of the voices and wishes and feelings of the children, we are rapidly improving on participation and engagement. And if anything at all, this is one of the aspects that we have, you know, really worked on. I mean, our speaker box, the way we engage our children and young people in everything that we do speaks, you know, a lot. For example, in interviews, I mean, I'm a living witness. Part of my interview, we had children and young people, we had caregivers, and most of our interviews, really, you have children there. We're working on our direct work tool, and our direct work is the way we actually, you know, get children and young people to internalize their wishes and feelings. So these are the key areas in terms of how we engage children, how we gain their views in a number of ways. You know, we do feedback as well, you know, getting feedback from children, young people. So during our audit framework, one of the key things we must do is auditors calling up children, calling up families, calling up foster carers, and asking them about, you know, our services, you know, about where we can get things to improve. So these are the ways that we're triangulating and ensuring that the voices, wishes, and feelings of children and young people are embedded in everything that we do.
Yeah, thank you.
I would just add to what Yinka said. While we learn from Ofsted, before they come, we have to submit a self-assessment. So a kind of assessment of where we think we are. And actually the areas that we identified as the things we wanted to make better are the same as what Ofsted identified. So we didn't come in and, like when Ofsted came, we weren't surprised by the areas to improve, because we would say honestly, that missing and police protection were things that we really wanted to make better. So it was reassuring to us that and it gives us more focus on those things, because that's what Ofsted saw too. But our own self-assessment identified those things, and within their report they noted that we knew ourselves, and we're quite tough on ourselves, and we're also quite open and honest and reflective about these are things that need to get better. So it was helpful that they didn't come in, it helped reassure us that our self-assessment was right, because they didn't come in and find different things, they didn't come in and find other things, or nothing was a surprise in a way in the areas to improve, which I think was reassuring. And as Yinka said, young people are at the centre of everything. Speaker Box meet really regularly in Telford Place. I meet with young people really regularly, and they give us ideas on how to improve. They also do lots of fun stuff, and they're going to be at the Bubble Theatre doing a performance this summer, and go out on lots of fun activities and have holidays for children in care and care leavers together as well. So there's lots of fun stuff, but also they have helped us transform our services. And one of the things they really helped with was our children's homes. So colleagues might know that we didn't used to have children's homes. We now have one children's home, which is open and has 4 children within it. And that was inspected in December of 2025, and our first children's home got outstanding. So, and I think that outstanding for that children's home was because of the brilliant children that live there, the brilliant staff that work within the children's home, but also Speaker Box had helped us design it, had helped us think about what it was going to be like. And so children and their voices are very central to all of our services, and we want to continue to build on that.
Thank you. Councillor Benavides.
Thank you very much. And congratulations, Helen and Yinka, for the stellar work you deliver. Even benchmarking your work with England works in this area. It's visible that you do an excellent job helping a number of families and children. Thank you very much for that. And there are still areas to improve, as in anywhere, you know, in everything we do, we can improve. One of them is the percentage of older children in care. Why is this percentage is higher in Southwark than in other boroughs in London and in England? And it has been always this pattern for older children to be in care in this area, more than in other areas of London. And the last question is there any preventative work instead of reactive to do in this area when we don't want to act when people are already being exploited? So is there anything we can do to prevent this happening?
So in terms of prevention, there are some really good schemes to prevent, and particularly for adolescents, we have Adolescent Sure Start and an Adolescent Hub. We also have I suddenly can't think of the thing that I was thinking of, the Turnaround project in Youth Justice, which helps adolescents before they're coming to the attention of Youth Justice, but where there are some factors where things are not going well in adolescence. So we do have good supports for adolescents, but our experience in Southwark is that it does seem to be a particular pinch point, that adolescents, so sometimes we might have known children earlier on, or they've come into contact earlier on and might have been doing really well, but sometimes during adolescence, factors such as extra familial harm, exploitation come into play, and some children who have additional needs, autism, things can become much more difficult within the family during that period of adolescence, and we are putting in support. We have a KFT team, which is keeping families together, that can put in intensive intervention to really help a family to stay together when during adolescence there are things that are not going well. So we have quite good interventions and support. So then, yeah, why do we continue to see a higher cohort coming into care in that older age group? I don't know entirely why that is. We continue to see that pattern. We explore why it is. Is it that we've sometimes looked, should we have helped earlier? Should we have intervened earlier? But our audit doesn't necessarily show that. It seems to show that we have a number of adolescents that really, really struggle, and families really struggle to meet those needs. And sometimes there are factors outside of the family that are impacting upon that. So there seems a greater risk for some of those young people of coming into care, and sometimes that can be really late. Recently we've had a couple of 17-year-olds who've come into care, which seems a really, really kind of, you know, when you're approaching your 18th birthday, but actually things have happened within the family environment or outside of the family that means it isn't possible. And we've got a great family group conference service. The person that leads that is really innovative, has this offer of reaching out any family, including family in other countries that might be able to help and support, or all across the UK. So we put all of those supports in, and yet we still do have, although we've had a declining population coming into care, so it's less, we have a lot less children than we had 5 years ago in care, we still see more adolescents coming in to care as a percentage of the overarching population.
By the things that I'm hearing from you, I don't think supporting these children is the only thing we could do. If we had over the board good parenting training for parents of children from all ages, you know, just teaching them what's being a good parent, and making them understanding what are the things that really make a difference when to keep the family together. Maybe have some sessions, family sessions, for them to talk with each other. Maybe it's communication missing. So that's an idea that I don't know if you already have a program like that on schools to help parents, but this could be a preventative job to be done.
We do have a parenting assessment team, not only a parenting assessment, a parenting training and programs. And we also have a fathers program that does particular work with men. And a lot of the trainers on those programs are parents in the borough who have undertaken the program. So we've kind of trained parents to deliver that. So we have a really good offer and different offers for different strengthening families, strengthening communities, kind of different stages of when you're a parent of under fives, when you're a parent of primary school children, and during adolescence. We do have that, and we have a clinical support. So we have clinicians who work within our teams who can do individual sessions with parents, or family work, or systemic work. So we do have some of those resources. And I think while for us in Southwark we do see older adolescents coming into care, it's not totally, when I talk to colleagues in Lambeth and our surrounding boroughs, this is a trend that other boroughs in London see as well. It's marked for us that is the age group coming into care, but that is a pattern that other London boroughs talk about, that some children have managed to live within their families till adolescence, and then in adolescence there can be a breakdown in family relationships and children come into care. And we do work hard with lifelong links as well to help children, when they come into care, keep their link with their family, their siblings, their communities, people that have been really important to them. So as well as life story work, we have a lifelong links project, so that if a child, sometimes children can't live with their family, but actually their family are still very much part of their network and part of their support, but living together might not, there can be a point at which, as hard as we try, it might not be the right thing for the child to continue living at home.
Very quickly.
Do the parents engage? Do they turn up to the sessions, or they resist? They are interested in that.
So some parents engage and are hugely interested, but of course there are some parents that for different reasons don't. But we have good engagement and a good fathers program and a good parenting program, but not all parents engage, and sometimes have factors in their life that mean at that point point they don't.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Ali, did you want...
I mean, I'll try and be quick. I mean, I think really, I've seen the parenting programmes and they're very good and everything, but I think, you know, sometimes when you're looking at an issue, you have to look globally, and there are 10,000 children with special education needs and disabilities in this borough, and there are, you know, there's already a national explosion with children and young people with poor mental health, with, you know, like challenges like social media, a whole range of things. And when confronted with that, one, you know, wonders how come there aren't more, do you know what I mean, coming into care at adolescence. So, you know, thankfully we've got like really amazing teams and everything. But I wanted to say something a bit about the early help team really. I mean, which they are second to none. You know, we've got Keeping Families Together programme, but, you know, they're basically, you know, they head all these issues off at the path, and, you know, it's, I think, parenting programmes and training is one aspect, but there are many as well. And, you know, I think that the waiting lists around children waiting for clinical mental health, you know, it's pretty 2 years. It may have gone up or down now, but last time I looked. And with ADHD and autism, you know, again, you know, that can be over 2 years. I mean, one thing that you may not know, but in the borough, if you've got children that have been in care or had care experience, they can, you know, they can basically get to the front of that queue because we've got a special link service, and they're linked to the early help service and everything. So, you know, there's pretty good wraparound issues, but I think it is pertinent. Adolescence, you know, especially social media, it's well known that it's quite a you know, an explosive time, and you're dealing with puberty, a whole range of things, but in particular, you know, the challenges. So yeah, and I think the point may have been lost there, but the early help team are like really awesome, and if you're new to the council, you could do a lot worse than going and meeting them.
Brilliant, thank you. Councillor Johnston?
I have a question, don't worry. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thoughts though as I said that. I was looking through the improvement plan and the impact measures, and I understand why you've chosen what you've chosen, but I wondered, how are you going to capture the impact on staff? Because there's quite a lot of processes to introduce, and you do need to understand how it's impacting senior management, I think, in terms of the quality assurance, but also staff on the ground in terms of embedding the new programmes. So how will you factor that in?
So I've actually looked into this. So this is not something that we'll just throw out there all at once. So all of these are actually in phases. So we're taking it one step at a time. I'll give you an example. One of the key things we looked into, in fact, which would actually alleviate the pressure on staff, is our audit tool, which haven't done a survey. The collective feedback is that, you know, some of the questions are quite long. And just this week, gone on a Monday, we had a team of people coming together, all our audit leads, our principal social worker, myself, and the lead data member for the council coming together and looking into that. So this will be a phased improvement plan. I know it's quite structured in terms of the date, but most of these actually are what we've already achieved in terms of putting policies in place. But the impact would not be actually huge on our staff the way we've designed it. I can assure you that.
That's reassuring to know. I guess you still want to get staff feedback in terms of if there's any kind of things you need to be ironing out that doesn't work so well, and also just to know you're on the right track in terms of morale, because I know that can always be difficult when you have a program of change.
Absolutely. So say, for example, one of the key things we did with the audit tool is just generally ask people, you know, in terms of their feedback. And one of the things we're doing, so like I said, we've looked into our audit framework. Instead of now having 2 audits within one audit cycle, it will be 1. And that's because now we've extended our audit cycle to 4 every quarter as opposed to 2, and where people will have 2 done at a go. So we're constantly asking for, you know, feedback. I'm liaising with the head of service. The head of service are speaking to their service managers, and in that chain of, you know, line of management, and service managers are also speaking to their team managers. So if there's anything at all, our audit and learning officers are actually co-seated within our service areas and actually asking questions about our improvement plans.
Okay, thank you very much. I think if everyone's okay, we'll maybe end the discussion there. So thank you so much for both of you coming present. I think you've given us loads to think about, and there's some really clear timelines so that we've got the opportunity to follow up on these points throughout the year. Yeah, thank you. So I'm aware that we have got another item for the agenda, which is talking about the work programme. Would anyone like a 5-minute comfort break before we do that? Okay. Thank you. Great. So yeah, I just wanted to open discussion about item 7, which is the work programme discussions for this coming year, and consider potential scrutiny topics for inclusion in the Commission's work programme. So maybe, should we start, maybe let's talk about local economy first, so that because we need to make sure that we've got a good mix, and I'll wait for, maybe Councillor Ali will be back by the time we talk about education. So in terms of proposed topics in focusing on local economy, I know the East Street Market is something that the Commission has looked at before, so that might be something we want to consider. And my understanding is that Councillor Bentley is looking to focus on kind of work experience offer, with a particular focus on NEETs, so children not in education or employment or training, and children with special educational needs. So those are just a couple of ideas. What else did I have down here? Obviously, thriving high streets is an area that we could look at. I guess we would need to decide kind of the angle of that, and potentially, as well as I believe the Commission's done stuff around the London Living Wage before, but there's also consideration of London Living Hours. I've also got down here the CIL, Community Interest Levy. So those are just some of my initial ideas, but I'm really keen to obviously hear what everyone else thinks that we should be focusing on. So has anyone got any comments, suggestions? Councillor Batterson?
Thank you, Chair. So I think the bit around. So I think looking at where there's the opportunity to bring the two topics together is quite important for this Commission. So obviously you've got education, local economy, but where education meets local economy, and I think the point that you made there around work experience for young people not in education or employment or training, I would probably think I think it might be helpful to look at that as a broader piece than just work experience, though, because I think like internships, apprenticeships, work experience is part of that, but I don't think we necessarily need to define it just to work experience. I think you touched on thriving high streets there. I mean, the council did have a thriving high streets fund that's now been. There aren't any more future rounds of that. So I think having a understanding about like what the council is doing to support small businesses, whether that be on the high street or just in general. So like small business support as a broad topic might be quite an interesting thing to look into. I suppose in the past, this Commission has had interviews with the executive members, so that would include Councillor Bentley, it would include Councillor Corn, and I kind of wondered if having one of those at the next meeting might be quite, I mean, given some of the things that we've obviously prioritised, whether inviting Councillor Corn to the October meeting as an example, maybe the scrutiny officer might want to provide a bit. I don't know if that's common practice now, whether that's still something that each of the commissions are doing in terms of inviting lead members to have interviews with the Commission, but...
As a part of the statutory remit, I mean, we invite executive members to come and interview. We can include this as a part of that request for interview. So that's education and local economy, the executive members for both.
And so I made a couple of points tonight about property, and obviously I'd emailed the chair and scrutiny officers about this, and I think from what I understand it's been included in the OSC agenda items. I think there's a really strong case for it to be included in this Commission. I mean, again, we spoke about it tonight. Ben made some suggestions in terms of recommendations that we might want to put forward in terms of the council's relationship with CalMars, transparency around price, how the system works, all these sorts of auctions-based letting, which OSC will not have the time to get into this level of detail. So I think it needs to be decided by OSC whether they want to relinquish it to this Commission. But I think there's a strong case for that to be the case. So I'll just say that I think that, as maybe a broader agenda item, would be quite an interesting thing for this Commission to look into.
Councillor Fowler?
Thank you. Yeah, just some thoughts I had. I think void businesses, as Mr. Davis brought up in the blue, is not just felt there, but all across Southwark. And I know that there's actual pilot studies in Lambeth and some other areas about how you can get landlords to, after like 6 months of voidness, force them basically to use that and release that for a lower rent. I think us looking at that would be really important as a great way to just keep making sure that units aren't left for years on end. I also think with the Prime Minister's recent announcements of business rates, I think it'd be really good for this committee to do an impact review of how they help local businesses. I think they'll hopefully help a bit, but we need to assess obviously how much they are helping businesses and if we need to look at other ways to support and also what we can look towards getting central government to support with as well. And I also think a really kind of interesting one, especially for the north of the borough, is an impact review made on the railway arches. I know my understanding is they're privately rented, but I know every time I go through there, businesses are coming in and out there, and there's a lot of void units in there. So I think potentially looking at that as an area for development for local economy could be interesting as well. Thank you.
Councillor Johnston?
Thank you. I was just wanting to put forward maybe the Elephant and Castle New Town Centre, because it's going to be a massive hub for us in terms of Southwark's economy, and just making sure that, you know, there's good integration there, supporting independent businesses as well to set up there, so it doesn't become, you know, I guess something that's seen as quite gentrified, you know, bringing the existing community along. I think there's been a lot of success in the previous administration with trying to make sure some businesses were rehoused on Castle Square, but just in terms of the rest of that development, just keeping an eye on that. Also, and slightly out of scope, but I noticed in the minutes there were some draft recommendations from last year that were put forward to Cabinet. Just having the Cabinet response back to that would be great. Obviously, it's a new administration, but I think it should still be considered and we shouldn't let stuff slip off. Yeah, and then lastly, I did notice that under this committee now we have the Youth Parliament. So just inviting them in as well to get the voice of young people in the area and what the borough's priorities should be would be great.
Sorry, Councillor Griffiths, I think you were next.
Sorry. Just to go back to what Councillor Basson was saying about the kind of the nexus of where local economy meets education. I think it'd be really interesting to explore a little bit more into what Southwark Works initiative have been doing, because I know that it's put matched 13,000 people with the right job, but it'd be great to go a little deeper into that and think about those who are facing quite complex barriers. So it might be health conditions or accessibility or disability even, and then also thinking about how that applies to youth networks as well, and potentially kind of sharing that best practice so that young people can kind of look into it and understand how they can access those jobs.
Thank you. Councillor Ali?
Yes, is this on the work programme? So
Yeah, well, I thought we'd start on the kind of local economy topics and then chat about education, just to kind of...
right.
I just found it easier to compartmentalise it slightly, but obviously there
so
are...
we're just doing local economy?
Yeah,
now.
if that's all right.
Yeah, okay. Well, most of mine are under education, but I think really the youth guarantee, which, you know, we spoke about in the run-up to the election, and the fact that we've got, you know, in that interface, you know, we've got so many, good and outstanding schools, you know, and we've got people from, you know, young people from quite deprived backgrounds, you know, booking the...
Sorry, just in case anyone's got their phone next to their microphone, that might be a factor in the feedback. But
Oh, it might be this laptop. Oh, really? Okay, I'll put this down. It feels like there's an engine going on in the back of my brain. Okay, that's not good. Yes, so, you know, we've got all of this great progress on the education, but, you know, it's harder than ever for young people to get employment at all. So I think, you know, a deep dive into that would be good. I mean, I just wanted to, as well, we'll get on to education. I know you're going to go on to that next, but I just also wanted to say, because I haven't been on Scrutiny for many years now, for 8 years probably, but some of the things that we did on our Scrutiny committee was to mix it up a little bit, to get out of the town hall. You know, so maybe I did one in a school once and I did it all day. And when we get on to another idea I've got for the education, I just wondered, You know, I'll say a little bit about that when we get to education, but I think it would be good, you know, if we could mix it up and get out of the town hall, really. Different methods of scrutinising.
Okay, great. Did anyone else have any more local economy topics? I think we've got quite a lot. You good? Okay. Good.
Quick one, Chair. So I think it's important that as a commission we focus on things that we can make recommendations on that the executive can respond to and either decide to take forward or not. I think business rates is something that as a commission and a local authority we have very little influence on realistically, and we could have a very detailed conversation about it, but I don't think it would be a very effective use of our time. So I think it's just important that we're taking forward agenda items that the local authority has influence over. Yeah. That's it.
No, thank you. Okay, great. Yeah, no, definitely. I'll take that on board, and yeah, don't worry. I won't try and fit all of these items into our work programmes. So otherwise, we'll never get home from our meetings. Education. So attending the OSC, the initial OSC meeting, some topics came up. SEND reform is a big one. The pupil planning model, which I'm aware was covered by this commission before, but maybe with more of a focus on secondary schools and the impact of secondary schools closing rather than primary. And the other one I have down here is transition arrangement from adolescent CALMS to adult services, which may be something that perhaps the Health Commission should look at if it's focused on 18 to 25 kind of transition, but open to discussion. Other areas, so obviously we've been looking at the Ofsted report today. I think children's mental health in general is an important topic. And yeah, my understanding is the Southwark Safeguarding Children's Partnership report is something that's usually covered annually. Yeah, so those some initial ideas. Does anyone like to start me off with more?
I think really just to go back on the SEND, I mean, obviously that's like huge now, isn't it? And we've got 10,000 children with SEND. So very timely. And we've got a new education secretary as well, so we'll see what happens there. But there's enough in that legislation. I think it was Georgia Gould, wasn't it, who was like presiding over inclusion and everything. So, you know, it would be great, you know, I mean, obviously everyone's going to have ideas and everything, but it seems to me that the stars on the moon, or wherever this saying is, are aligning on SEND. So, you know, it would be great maybe to do something in a school, maybe a special needs school, doesn't have to be, but in a school, you know, to look at different aspects of that, you know, spend a day, scrutiny in a day looking at that. But I get that that's a big thing I'm passionate about, but I get other people will have other ideas. But it does strike me that as it's such a big policy issue, you know, we could really add value. I mean, in my other role, I put in the plan that we should revolutionise SEND services, and officers were a little bit like, you can't revolutionise something that's broken, but, you know, one could argue that that's precisely where you need that kind of energy. But I think really, you know, it would be great if we could do that. I mean, the other thing I wanted to say is that we have a corporate parenting board, but, you know, it might be quite good, you know, to, because we're a bit more distant from that, not scrutinise the corporate parenting board, but to, you know, basically have a much more project focus on looking at care leavers and, you know, that world. I mean, it was great to have them today, but they've already said pinch points, didn't they, September and March, you know, so maybe we could do something, you know, about that really. I mean, I think when I was asked on scrutiny, we looked at children in care because, again, there was a big legislation thing, but I don't think anyone has looked at it in this committee since, so that might be timely.
Would anyone else like? Yeah, Councillor Johnston.
Thank you. Just to pick up, I know you spoke about, I think you called it pupil planning was the term you used, but you referring to falling roles in Southwark, are you? And yeah, so I believe that last year it was the lowest amount of applications received in terms of for schools. So I think it would be good to keep an eye on it. I'm a governor in Southwark. I chair a local primary school, and I feel from the Southwark's Governors Forum that I've attended, they said that they were going to assess the situation for a bit after the closure of the 2 local primary schools. I think it was Mary Magdalene and Charlotte Sharman, the 2 schools that closed. But I think it is worth keeping an eye on it because we're still on a downward trend. And also then what's happening to those old buildings and how we're keeping them for community use and, you know, the education system.
Yeah, Councillor Ali?
Chair, just on that, we did have a strategy which I worked with schools and the council to deliver, and that was heavily scrutinised because that was when the phenomena of falling school rolls had just started to bite because we'd spent 100 million on schools, and then schools were, all of a sudden there weren't enough children to populate them. So, you know, I think, you know, I would agree with you, we should definitely have it, you know, somewhere on this agenda. Possibly not a big scrutiny in a day or anything, but I think we should just definitely have it on too.
Mana, did you want to come in?
No, I just want to support what you just mentioned because I'm also a governor and I'm part of the admission committee in my school, so that is an area that needs to be looked at seriously. Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else? No? We good? Okay. What do you think, Amit? Do you think we've got enough? I think we've got sufficient suggestions. Okay. Great. Well, I guess, are we able to draw the meeting to a close then? Fantastic. Oh, no. Yeah, Councillor Batson?
Just a quick question. So, obviously, the sort of process with this commission generally is that you wait for the end of the year, you make the recommendations, they go through the executive, we get a response. I'm just conscious that there's some things in from tonight's meeting that we might want to recommend or suggest that we might not want to wait a year to get a response to. So, like, what is the process behind us making suggestions or requests that we don't have to wait to the end of the kind of year to,
Thank you, Chair. So, with regards to the topics that we have under review or we planning to review, it's quite important that as a commission we have our strong evidence base. So, for example, today we heard from Bermondsey Blue, that's local economy. We haven't heard from officers. We might want to hear from officers on bids, business improvement districts. We might want to hear from actual business owners. So it is up to the commission and the chair to decide how long we need to spend on certain reviews, and it would make, I feel it would be a much more complete review if we heard from all parties and then put our recommendations together. That could be in 2 meetings time. It doesn't have to be at the end of the year. So that's the process that we try to follow.
Okay, great. And also, I guess we'll be following up with, if there's suggestions that we're interested in taking forward for the work programme, we'll be following up to kind of get clarification to make sure we fully understand the suggestions and talk to officers to understand like the most appropriate time frame for those to happen. Councillor Johnson?
I think just on that point, in terms of triangulation, to make sure we have a really strong evidence base before we formulate our recommendations, conscious we've heard from 1 or 5 business innovation districts, so just thinking back to that work programme, how we get in touch with the rest of them, or is it from the officers' perspective that we speak to who are in charge, the lead officers in terms of liaison?
Yeah, so we can approach local economy officers to come and speak about business support to bids and how it works from the council's perspective. We can invite business owners to come and talk to us. So that way we've got all the bases covered. So yeah, I mean, sorry, was there a second part of your question? Or no. Okay. So yeah, the idea is to gather a complete evidence base, and then the recommendations will be brought back for ratification to the commission once they have been formed. Yep.
Sorry, it wasn't clear. What I was kind of saying is, I think when we spoke about the suggestions for the work plan relating to local economy, I don't think we actually spoke about business improvement districts again, in that expressly so. And I think there are some things today where colleagues may have some thoughts, but gathering more evidence, basically thinking about who else we can invite to then make sure we can make the strongest recommendations possible, taking your advice.
Absolutely. I mean, I've recorded that already, so it will be a part of the work program discussion.
Yeah, and I guess it could fall under thriving high streets or small businesses, so definitely won't lose that. Councillor Ali, did you have?
I was just thinking, really, we'll have the work plan, but I just wondered what the outputs would be, because obviously you've got different methods of scrutiny, haven't you? So you've got the holding people to account, the lead members and all of that, and then you've got the sort of qualitatively moving, really adding value to policy, which would be something like the SEND reforms or youth guarantee, whatever. So, I mean, just from what I remember of this, is that the calendar goes really quickly. Do you know what I mean? And then before you know it, you're scrabbling around in a darkened room trying to knock out reports. So I think, it's probably a good idea to, just decide, are we going to have 2 reports, 3 reports? And usually by Christmas, you'd be wanting to, basically have at least a couple out, because not having that good housekeeping really means that just at the end of the calendar year, you end up having, like, when you're on cabinet, you have, like, basically all the scrutiny reports at once as well, which, you can do it like that, but it's just a bit stressful, really, and sometimes it's better to be ahead of it so you can actually look at the reports from a distance as well.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for your time, for giving it your evening. Thanks, Alan.